Hello and welcome to Shite Talk, an Irish history podcast, a relatively quiet Irish history podcast this week, or the intro at least, for a handful of reasons. One, I don't have Kevin with me. I'm all alone in that sense, in terms of doing podcast introductions. Two, I'm alone in the sense that I'm isolating/quarantining. I don't know what the difference between them is. I know that there is something there, but I'm in the spare room in my ma's gaff, and she's looking after me by leaving stuff outside the door, going back down the stairs, and then I come out and get it. I feel like a prisoner in a good sense like that. She's been a very good guard or warden or whatever you'd call it. I'm getting pancakes for the morning, soup at lunch, and bacon and cabbage for dinner, which is feckin' class. What's not class is possibly having COVID. We'll see. I don't think I have it. Maybe I do. That has been partly one of the reasons why we've not been doing much on the Patreon this month. Although we did well last month, and the plan is to do more next month, and maybe even the end of this month. We're going to start the Shite Talk Film Club. So for anyone who is a member of the Patreon or anyone who wants to sign up, the first film is going to be Waking Ned Devine. And you're thinking, Jason, is that because you're from Carlow? And Carlow is also the home of that story of the lads bringing a dead body down to the post office to collect a dead man's pension. That's exactly why we're doing that episode, because it's a hot topic, and because I don't know if Kev's ever seen it, so I said we'd go along with that. So if anyone wants to watch that film in advance, also you can send us in questions, favourite parts, things you'd like us to talk about, things you spotted, etc. You can email those to shitetalkhistory@gmail.com and just put in the subject heading, Shite Talk Film Club. But I will keep this short, because also I'm talking very low because it's nearly midnight and I'm recording this because I'm going to try and get it out in the morning time for all of y'all. And I don't want to wake up my ma, because she's up at 6:30 and she has enough on her plate dealing with me. So yeah, cheers to everyone. And if you want to get in touch with us, all the regular crack, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, @Shite Talk History. Email us, shitetalkhistory@gmail.com. Tell all your friends. Subscribe to the Patreon if you'd like. Leave a review for the podcast. That helps. We can get more people listening, etc., etc., etc. But or just don't do any of that. Instead, just enjoy this free episode about the history of Munster Rugby versus the New Zealand All Blacks, or the time Munster Rugby beat the New Zealand All Blacks. And some of you are probably at home now going, you're cashing in on the fact that the Six Nations is coming up. And you just want all the rugby fans who are searching for shite to go find you in that. And you'd be right. That's exactly what we're doing. But in true Shite Talk fashion, I've managed to pick two teams that don't compete in that competition and have very little to do with it. So there's my spin on it. And we will chat to you next week at some point. Or maybe at the end of this week on the film club. Yeah. Anyway, chat to you later.
Gather around now, you're in for a story. Old tales of lore, all in search of a glory. The history and mystery of lads, lasses and all. Discoveries and voyages, the rise and the fall. Follow me now as we go back in time. We trace the steps of Irish heritage to find. Joseph from Carlow and Kevin the dog guide you through the ways of Shite Talk.
The 1905 All Blacks team were going around Europe playing matches. A big deal at the time, as they were the first side from Oceania to tour outside the continent. Yeah, I went with Oceania as a term there.
Yeah.
Realised when I was writing that seemingly that's not what anyone else in the world says. I just must have had a really old geography book when I was younger.
Oh, is Oceania like Oriental? Can you not say that anymore?
I don't know, it's like Australia, New Zealand, Pacific Islands, all of that crack, but I've always known it as Oceania, or is that's what was on the globe and that crack.
What else am I supposed to call the people of East Timor and Nanu?
And then West Timor.
Timor-Leste, sorry. That's probably worse than Oceania.
Timor-Leste.
Yeah, the other one, Timor-Leste. Well, fair. Okay, I need a new collective term.
Australia. No, sorry, Austrasia.
Yeah, Australia. Yeah, okay. That's much worse.
But now this team, 35 matches on tour, won 34 of them. Who did they lose to, Kevin?
Their turn around Europe. They lost to, I'm going to guess, Ireland.
No, Wales.
Oh.
But they also beat Munster 33-0 in Market Fields in front of a crowd of 3,000 strong.
Okay.
Ireland, on the other hand, did a little bit better, lost 15-0 up in Lansdowne.
Nice. And what year is this?
This is 1905.
1905. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering why only 3,000 people showed up for the New Zealand match. Like, I might wander in.
They were captained by Dave Gallagher, a Donegal man captain in New Zealand, born in Ramilton, Rathmelon, both pronunciations, in 1873. In 1878, he moved down to New Zealand with his family. His dad, James, 69 when he had him. His ma, Maria, a whopping 29.
Okay, they're old years.
Well, 29, not really. I mean, that's my current age. And
in 1873, to be alive and emigrating. At that point, you're not making changes for the family. At that point, you're figuring out where your grave goes, and that's the most forward-thinking move you're making.
But you said nothing about the fact that his dad was 69. You're like, his mother, 29. She's lucky to be alive.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was how he was conceived.
Oh, so you're bad at maths, geography, and biology by the accounts of everything so far. History maybe too. We'll see how the rest of this goes on. And sports. James Gallagher's the name, drapery's the game. He was a shopkeeper, and after his first wife died, he married this young one, Maria. Dave was their 7th of 10. He had 2 kids from the previous marriage.
Nice.
They moved to New Zealand, taking 3 months to get there, as was the style at the time. He was hoping to get work in a kind of a linen factory or doing something with textiles. Couldn't really find work because he was a 69-year-old man. So his ma became a teacher and the main breadwinner until 1887 when she died of cancer. So young Dave left school to work at the age of 13. At first in a stock and station agents, and then after that, a mill of sorts, and then a freezing company, lifting dead animal carcasses and heavy ones. That's how he gained his strength. Enough strength to grow on to be the captain of the New Zealand rugby team.
What a life. What a time. Up until the New Zealand rugby team part. What an existence. What age was he when he left Donegal? First off, you're born in Donegal.
5.
Actually, that's not bad. That's pretty nice. And then they uproot you from the lovely hills of Donegal and put you on a boat for 3 months in what I assume was the express route to New Zealand, where your mother dies and this madman draper, who at this point must be 70 odd, is trying to get a job in New Zealand. He's probably the oldest man you've ever seen. The oldest man most people have ever seen.
Dave went on to co-write the complete rugby football text with New Zealand vice-captain Billy Stead.
Nice. Him and Billy Stead were the only 2 that weren't severely brain damaged enough to they could write. But even then, it still took 2 of them to write a book. They were the 2 most cognitive rugby players, and it was a joint effort that took them the guts of 6 years.
But Dave enlisted in the war in May 1916. Now, he was exempt to do so because of his age.
What age was he?
Was it 39? 40?
Oh, yeah, fair enough. My father lived to 69. I've still got another good 20 years. Let me at him.
Well, if your dad was writing some 29-year-old when he was 69, it would probably ruin your idea of like the time to settle down.
Yeah, or you wouldn't be held down by notions of what a man can and can't do. He can move halfway around the world and start selling bits of cloth to New Zealand farmers. Why shouldn't he sign up as an Anzac and go fight the war?
But he didn't, though.
He did fail, that's true.
But he failed miserably at selling, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Because he couldn't even get a job.
And, Dave failed to get into the... Oh, no, sorry, he did get into the army, and you say he died in Belgium.
Yeah, so he was successful in dying in West Flanders in October of 1917.
cool.
He got into a lot of skirmishes and stuff, but I mainly just mentioned him because of the fact that it was a big deal. This is seen as the original All Blacks, captained by an Irish lad.
Nice. Okay.
And he also did war. He was in wars, and that's not the only war he was in. He was in the Anglo-Boer War of 1901.
Yeah, a classic.
Oh, a big one. Yeah, he got malaria. And even before any of that, it was weird. So the fact that he'd made it to be a giant rugby player, because he had a curvature in his spine and stunted muscles in one of his legs as a youth, needed surgery and operations and such. Hardier men for hardier times.
Yeah. That's maybe the curve gave him an advantage. He was always in scrum position.
But that's all just to say that Munster and the New Zealand All Blacks have been going at it for years, since the first meeting in 1905. Munster were shown up on that day, losing 33-0, but since then they were seen as a scrappy underdog, the average Joe's hero, the working stiff's kind of drift, if you pick it up what I'm putting down, the rookie ball boa, if you would, Kevin.
Jesus, that's well done, well played. Now the listeners can't see the big Cheshire grin on Jason Brennan's face, but he's happy with that.
It's very, yeah.
That's one for the books. All right.
I kind of thought I could just leave the rest of the episode there and just be like, Munster beat New Zealand one time in a match.
Yeah, that's all for this week.
But New Zealand came back up and played again in 1954, beating Ireland 14-3, Munster 6-3.
Okay. Or so they beat Ireland as a whole 14-3, and they only beat Munster 6-3.
Yes, and it was a hotly contested game. Much like in 1963, they bet Ireland 6-5, Munster 6-3. Munster always there or thereabouts. Ireland did very well that time. Missed a conversion for a try late on in the game. Could have won or drew, however it may be. But very tight. Very tight. Now, obviously, New Zealand played Ireland a lot more because they were a country. So they would play them once every year, 2 years or so. Munster was more of a, when they were playing over around the British Isles, that they would have the odd game against them, kind of seemingly once every 10 years or so.
As like a novelty act.
Yeah, well, when rugby teams go on tour, they play, because they have to bring over a lot of lads as well, they'll play like the test games at the weekend, but then obviously then they'll play like club matches. So like when Ireland go and play down south, or like when the Lions, the British and Irish Lions go and play tours down in the Southern Hemisphere, they'll play like 3 games against the actual country that they're playing, and then about 10 games against just some club side that they fucking batter.
You have to make it worth your while.
Yeah, instill some confidence and, TV rights deals and such.
Yeah.
Get some lads into the stadium, sell some jerseys. Now, but in 1973, Ireland got a 10-10 draw with them, while Munster had a breathtaking, nail-biting 3-3 draw. Still no side had beaten.
1973, that the year John Paul was in town. Maybe he gave the lads a little bit of extra magic against those devils from the south.
But New Zealand came back around only 1 year after, 1974. This time, beating Ireland 15-6, having beaten Munster 14-4 already in the tour. And that was in the great Thomond Park. And like I'd said, they didn't play Munster every time they played Ireland, but any time they did, a fun, competitive game. I was watching some documentaries on this, and pretty much all the New Zealand players said it was really nice going to Munster because it's the biggest sport down in Limerick. Thomond Park, Limerick. Rugby is God down there.
Really? I would have thought hurling was their sport now.
Now, but we're talking
maybe in the
years
70s,
ago.
yeah.
And they'd had a lot of success in the rugby.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But that brings us up to date on, well, before that, I should explain rugby to you. Do you know what rugby is, Kevin?
Yeah. I've seen the odd game here and there.
The 5-a-year in the Six Nations, and then whatever World Cup knockout stage match we're in.
Yeah. And then the autumn test matches, and
there we go. Now it's 1978. The All Blacks were once again on tour, and they decided, why not head off down to Munster as a warm-up match before their big test with Ireland 4 days afterwards. The game was set for October 31st, which, as you well know, Kevin, is what?
Oh, that's Halloween.
But, no, it's 3 days before my birthday.
Yeah, okay, fair. I mean, that's probably why they were in town. So wait, they went to play Munster on Halloween.
Yes.
Were they all wearing face masks?
Not a mask in sight.
That's fairly...
It was pre-pandemic times.
Bah humbug.
Well, was it? Oh no, Samhain wouldn't have been a thing. It would have been well past that at the time. I wonder what time Irish people started actually celebrating Halloween proper.
You see all those videos of kids in the 90s with terrible face painting and masks and stuff running around, setting people's houses on fire and, you know, just getting up to harmless pranks like that.
That wasn't Halloween. That was a different type of lads wearing masks setting houses on fire.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah.
That wasn't so much bah humbug as rah humbug.
There you go. What about this match?
Munster were being coached by Tom Kiernan, a former captain of Ireland. At the time he retired, he was the most capped Irish player, the most captained Irish player, and the leading scorer. He was also captain of the British and Irish Lions. He was in the 1968 tour of South Africa, finishing the series as the top scorer from either side, and played for Munster in the games in 63 and 73. So he wanted to finally taste victory after having narrow defeats in the past. So he had targeted this match. He had not only had the players over in England against Middlesex and the Exiles / London Irish as a fitness preparation. Now they got destroyed by Middlesex and drew with the Exiles. But this was more about fitness and learning to play with the lads you weren't accustomed to as much as your teammates at club level. Because remember, it's not international. It's not like international rugby as you know it now. It was an amateur game where you'd get together and play. Like some lads would play in an entire illustrious career for Munster that spanned 10 years and consisted of 24 appearances.
Okay. All right. So is there much of a crossover between the All Ireland team at this stage?
Yeah, a good lot of these lads will be on the Ireland team.
Okay.
So actually, yeah, so that's the thing. We'll come into that later on. But some of these lads did have to play a game 4 days after. And one of the big tactics for this match was that the Munster were thinking, right, how can we really prepare for New Zealand? We'll go over to England a month or so in advance or whatever it was, get ready, play big teams over there, get some fitness going, some morale, team bonding, etc. Then come back and do a load of fitness training every Wednesday night down in Fermoy, and then not play the games they were meant to on their Friday for the clubs. So they all had like club teams they were meant to go play with, and they just didn't do that because that was going to tire them out.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure the club managers love that.
Yeah. But yeah, so the Munster lads didn't go play for their clubs on the Friday. But then it was a bank holiday weekend, so it was a long weekend. They had a training session. I don't know about on the Friday, but someone said it was on the Saturday, the Sunday, the Monday, and the Tuesday, which was unheard of for such a long camp to go on at the time, for all the lads to get together and play together for that long. Because again, it was the 70s and sport didn't know professionalism.
The idea of training for 4 days in a row before going up against the best team in the world.
Yeah, unheard of.
Okay.
It was the same as the fact that they were doing fitness training once a week.
They were doing like calisthenics, just lifting big medicine balls and doing jumping jacks in the middle of the park.
I'd say they just found a hill in Fermoy and just ran up that a couple of times.
Yes.
I was also there's a documentary, I think it was made by Setanta Sports. You'll find it on CR Video Vaults, as you will all good Irish content from the past.
Yeah, pretty much everything.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. But even in that documentary that they're saying that like, oh yeah, and the manager, Tommy, you know, he'd be always telling you, mind your eating in the lead up to a game. And that was seen as revolutionary, as in don't be just sucking down ice cream and pints and chocolate, you know, like it's maybe just go light enough and try relatively healthy.
Yeah. Stick to the stout until after the match. You can drink as much beer and spirits and whiskey afterwards, but...
Oh, and one of the other big preparations that they did, they watched videotape of the 4 games that New Zealand had played in the UK.
That is probably revolutionary for the time. Like, to even have the equipment.
Oh yeah, so the games weren't being broadcast in Ireland, so the way for it was the manager got a friend in the UK to tape it.
And I'm picturing them wheeling it in just like us in primary school, where they just wheel in like a piece of shit TV VCR combo with that like cathode ray fuzz coming in, and they're like, now I think this blur here is the...
This is France versus England. Well, there's probably some stuff to be learned from it anyway. I did see some reports of lads saying that they'd got tapes and they were watching them and that, but then some lads said that the night before the game, we went down to a warehouse on the Kerry Road and we all watched the games.
Okay.
So there's that as well. But I reckon they might have got it before that and did a lot more. Also, the Tom Kiernan was interviewed and he was like, "Oh yeah, I think we might have actually had some videotape." Like the cute whore, he would not admit to it.
Of course,
no. He was like, "Oh yeah, this research is cheating." Is what?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I wonder, is it seen as unsportsmanlike at this point to have footage recordings of your opponents? I suppose it probably was.
Well, it was on TV, so it'd be the equivalent of just going to the games. Also, they're all in the UK, so someone could have went over to England and watched them.
Yeah, but there's something different about having it,
flesh.
as many times as you want. That's probably too... I'd say it probably was seen as being a bit, unfair. Until they all started.
Well, the fact that the New Zealand lads they had no idea of the Munster team or what they were up to.
Yes, yeah.
So they were going in pretty blind. But all of this is to say that they really wanted it. Big chance to shock the world and make up for past defeats. So the game itself, 12,000 fans came down to watch as this unbeaten New Zealand touring side stepped onto the hallowed turf of Thomond Park to face the Red Army of Munster. Munster, as already been said, their preparation was on point. The 2-game tour of England, the fitness sessions in Fermoy, the videotape analysis, watching what they eat. And then the bus got caught in traffic and they were late to the stadium. So very little.
Typical. The one day.
Why? What's all this traffic about? Is it the 12,000 people heading in the same direction we're heading?
But maybe this plays into a psychological advantage where New Zealand's sweating. They're like, fuck, the boys didn't even bother coming in on time.
Thinking they might get a walkover.
Yeah.
It appears that they didn't have much of a warm-up at all, if any.
If we don't get there in the next 4 minutes, we're not going to be able to have a pint before the match, lads. There's going to be queues 6 men deep.
There's 12,000 lads ahead of us already at the bar. Right, instead of that, let's just get straight into the dressing room.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. This is the real turnaround point. They were too late to get to the Thomond Park beforehand.
Well, it looks like they didn't really have much of a warm-up at all. And so, yeah, some lads thought that played into their hands because they didn't waste any extra energy. So they had that for the latter points of the game.
Nice.
This was a time when substitutions weren't really a thing. You had them on the bench, but lads didn't come on. I'll tell you this, in the entire game, Munster didn't use any substitutions. And New Zealand, only the one.
Yeah. Was it just seen as a coward's move?
Yeah, or else they thought, the best players, just leave them out there.
Yeah. I can just picture, the genius managers, the first copped onto that as they're, slowly looking between their haggard best players panting and heaving after running a meter and just looking over to their marginally less better players, doing jumping jacks and little sprint runs up and then the side of the pitch. Well, hold on a moment. Now, follow me on this one.
Well, it's the same for injuries and stuff. Rugby, soccer, any sport, you use substitutions, but when they weren't as often as common a thing, that you're the amount of lads in football over the years who played on with broken feet and an eyeball hanging out of their socket, and you're do you want to bring on one of these other lads? They're no, just put a Pirates eye patch on me and let's keep going.
Gary Lineker's just shit himself on the pitch. What am I supposed to do?
Wipe it.
Wipe your arse and move on.
Well, they didn't have enough time for the warm-up. That was all fixed by Tom Kiernan's amazing speech pre-game. Really rouse the lads up. Get them at the fever pitch level, the fans outside.
Yes.
What he said, and I have a quote of this now. Yep.
That No speech.
No speech. 15 minutes of absolute silence.
Really?
Just let it all, the atmosphere, the occasion. Let that sink into them. What they were about to go and do made some lads a bit nervous. Maybe good to get some nerves out then. Made some lads think about the task at hand. That was good as well.
You don't want to be
or maybe he just couldn't think of anything to say.
Yeah, probably. You don't want to be filling their heads with words.
By the same token, if they had went out and lost 60 points to 0, someone would have turned around and said, it was a bit weird that we sat there for 15 minutes of silence and the manager said fuck all.
In that occasion, he was probably saving all his breath for the ends we could give out to them.
Well, he said something along the lines of, right lads, it's a big occasion. Come on out, let's go do it.
Which is, he's dead right. It's not exactly cinematic, but he's, they know the stakes as much as anybody.
Yeah, and it's like occasionally those like rousing speeches will work, but also imagine like there's probably one of those in every final or semi-final of most sports.
And yeah, statistically 50% of them have to fail.
Yeah. And realistically more if you're coming from like the underdog scenario. Now, what happens before every New Zealand game kicks off?
The haka.
Mr. Sportsman. Yes.
Going over live to the sports corner.
It's like when Alan Partridge used to do sports on the day-to-day.
Yeah. There's a goal and another one.
He's got a foot on him like a traction engine.
It's the Maori haka. Although actually, I didn't think there would have been. Yeah, how long have they been doing that?
Oh, a long time.
Okay.
Long time. Back since I saw footage there in the C73, probably back in the 60s and stuff as well.
Yeah, because I thought you were hinting earlier that it wasn't a very integrated team with the Maoris at the time.
Well, it wasn't really.
They just took the parts they liked.
Well, it did look very odd because the haka wasn't always as menacing as it is now when it's like a well-oiled machine, all choreographed, everyone's dancing in unison. There's like throat slitting, there's tongues hanging out, there's like knee slapping. It all looks great. This looks more like. Do you remember when I was trying to learn that TikTok dance last Friday night at about 3 a.m?
Oh yeah. That's a great image.
I was good. I got it by the end.
You were good, yeah. But when we were all up there, we had about as much choreography as, I'm guessing, a 1978 New Zealand team doing the haka.
Yes, so much so that one of I think his name was Donaldson in the documentary I watched, that he had said like, yeah, I always found it kind of disrespectful because we didn't put much work into it and it could have been a lot better. And you can really tell that by looking at it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, because it's meant to be a war cry or something. And this is lads like clapping basically. And at the end, they jump up kind of like how Rocky does, in that freeze frame when he's up by the statue, like when he runs those steps. They dance around for a bit and just do that at the end and walk away. And listening to the Irish lads talk about it, you swear they were walking out onto into Normandy. But it's, right, this is going to be the battle of a lifetime.
But no other team has that where they like take old, war-threatening tactics from their nation. Like it'd be if the Irish team came out in balaclavas and they just one of them walked up to Donaldson and was like, "How's you getting on? I saw your wife dropping off your kids there at number 42 Bushfield Park College School. Interesting." And he's like, "Well, how do you know where my wife and kids go?" I was like, "Well, just remember that we do.
Just remember, we'd prefer if you lost this match."
Just you think about that now when it comes to the final moments of this game.
You're right, in fairness. But yeah, as I was saying, like Tonga have it, Samoa have it, Fiji have it.
Yeah, all the Australia
all of those...
plus. What did we settle on earlier?
Australasia. Land.
Yeah, them boys.
I suppose back in like the 60s when they were doing it and the 70s and that, like doing that silly dance must have been akin to like before anyone knew what karate really was. If some lad just started slowly moving his hands around and going, "Hey, yeah," and everyone was like, "Don't fucking mess with him."
That is oddly progressive that they incorporated that into the game.
But I don't know how inclusive it was looking by the photos and the videos. It seemed, and the team lineups and the names. But it seemed like they just taken it.
Yeah, okay.
Because they were like, it's a war cry. Okay, we'll take that for the rugby.
Yep.
Whereas I wouldn't be, I don't want to say I wouldn't be intimidated by it. I'd be intimidated more by the fact that there's a bunch of like 6'2", 15, 16, 20 stone lads in front of me who are about to play a physical sport where they run full speed and tackle you.
Like when you see it before the matches on TV, like the zoom close-ups, it looks impressive-ish. Yeah, but then when you see the wide shots, like you barely know what was happening. Yeah, you'd be much more focused on the occasion rather than watching them. It's very performative at this point.
Yeah.
It was literally a performance.
It is a performance, and in Maori culture, it's anyone like in rugby says, "Yeah, it's a call to arms, it's a war cry or whatever." But in Maori culture, they do that for like foreign dignitaries that come over to the country. There's like it's done at like funerals, it's done at wedding receptions. It's not this like it's a load of lads in unison slapping their knees and clapping their hands.
I was told, when I was in New Zealand, like I'm pretty sure secondary level education, the kids just are taught it in school.
Yeah,
it's like it's like a sign of respect, or but yeah. It's more common than it's just rugby and war.
Yeah, which that's why I hope it's not. I hope we don't have any Maoris listening that think I'm being insensitive. I'm being insensitive towards rugby people that think it's like the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah. It's the same. It's similar to English fans singing "Sweet Low" or "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot."
Yeah,
in that
it's racist.
Yeah, they've just taken that proud tradition of some other culture and like, yeah, we'll have that. That sounds good.
Well, the fly half, Tony Ward, you'd have seen him on RG over the years.
Oh, God, I would.
Because he was in 1978, I believe he was the European Player of the Year. He's a big deal. He was very good at the time, playing for Munster and Ireland. He had said that while they were doing that, the Irish lads kind of held together and tried not to look and not pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Just do their own thing. So New Zealand's talents lay in the back line, not their forwards. So they came to play an open, expansive game of rugby that they'd been doing in all the tests over in the UK, and they'd been doing that for obviously a few weeks or months at this stage. So not only they'd become familiar with each other playing the game, but their fitness levels as professional players in that as well at this time, which Ireland lads weren't. It's a very higher standard.
Yeah,
I don't know if they were professional, but on a tour in New Zealand team, that's basically as professional as you can get.
Sure.
Now Ireland knew New Zealand were going to have a lot more of the ball and wanted to play this attacking game. So the aim was to stay defensively strong and counter-attack whenever the opportunities arose. As I said earlier, they'd gotten together they'd already watched the videos, but they got together the night before the game to go over it one more time and go through the New Zealand areas of weakness. So the lads left that meeting with belief that they could do it, with team spirit, with bonding, and the knowledge of a rowdy home crowd on their side. So the game starts out and Munster go at it with intensity, Kevin. Maybe the sort of intensity that New Zealand weren't ready for, with their minds on other things, bar the game in front of them.
Post-sandwich pints and the chance of shifting a Bjor from Tralee.
The game begins with Tony Ward at out half for Ireland. That's number 10 for you, Kevin.
Thank you.
He's kicking a few high balls, up and unders,
Oh, yeah.
To test the mettle of the New Zealand fullback and their wingers, see if they like the high balls. Do you know what the rugby term for that is?
It's a combination of cocaine and speed.
Oh, the other term is actually a bomb.
Oh.
So you could say, yeah. But no, it was a Gary Owen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A lot of lads would actually say that it's called a Gary Owen, especially the lads from Munster. And especially the lads from Gary Owen Rugby Club, where the term originated.
Mainly in that area.
Yeah, they'd invented it back in I think they won like 3 Munster championships back in the early to mid-20s with it.
Yeah, well, I'm going out in the sporting limb here, but I guess it's similar enough to how GAA is played. Like kicking a high ball and then lads running under and jumping for it.
Yes, yeah. And in every other country in the world, to be honest, even to this day, that it's like Ireland are very good at that.
Yeah,
that's our main tactic. And it's just, well, we've got Rob Kearney. I think he's retired now, but they're just like, what if we go left. Okay, we got tackled. Well, we go right. Okay, we got tackled.
Boot it.
We'll just boot it up the middle really high and just to see if we can catch it.
Fucking clear it.
But this rattled the All Blacks. 2 men to a tackle, 2 men chasing the breaking ball, more up and unders, lineouts, scrums, competed in ferociously, not a second to breathe nor time to think. New Zealand came to play with their backs, but this was a game they'd need their forwards to step up and relieve some pressure. Now, the first big moment, if not game-changing, then confidence affirming, or belief confirming, was Seamus Dennison, as one man put it, creaming Stu Wilson, one of the world's best players at the time.
Okay.
He'd came in off the wing into like traditionally where a centre would be. They'd been running this like pre-rehearsed tactic over in England, but the lads had seen it on tape and knew what to expect.
Ooh.
So when that came, little old Seamus Dennison, who was actually meant to be small enough, came out and feckin' battered him.
Snotted him.
Now, at the time, because there wasn't as much footage of it and people around the world couldn't see it, this tackle went on to be fairly famous and people were talking about how amazing it was. Almost 100% illegal in today's game.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Didn't put his arms to try and wrap around him, and he just ran full force, shouldered him basically into the face.
Yeah. Well, they moved, like, Even I've only been barely paying attention to rugby in the last 10 years, but I feel like I remember high tackles coming in. I remember the first tournaments where those were played and people were outraged at what's it done. So you can't suddenly just loaf a man around the neck.
That's not when they came in. That's when people started, like, when the referees started saying,
you can't do
I'm
that.
going to implement this rule now.
Oh yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah, it was the ruination of the sport.
For our American listeners, that's kind of like a clothesline in professional wrestling.
Yeah,
when you just run out and just cling your outstretched forearm into a man's face as he's running full pelt past you.
Yeah.
And the same thing with that pre-rehearsed move came 10 minutes later, and Wilson was flatlined again, I think by a different man this time. And the All Blacks knew there was no success to be had going through the middle, or at least Wilson did. Ireland knew to have a chance in every department, they'd have to change things up. A bit of variety. Keep New Zealand on the back foot guessing. Catch them on the hop, as it were, Kev. So when a line-out occurred for Ireland on the New Zealand 25-yard line, instead of setting up as usual, three banks, front, middle, back, and all the big lads would be at the middle or back, and you throw it to them. Brendan Foley, the number 5, the Paul O'Connell, or as such, to you, Kev.
Yes.
He went to the first position where the prop would usually be, one of the smaller, buttier fellas. Now, the New Zealand props were just as big, so they mightn't have noticed this at the time, that something was afoot.
Yeah.
They were like, it makes sense to have another 6'3" man right here. But instead of going back to the middle, they went with a quick, short ball to Foley, who won it, but not cleanly. He was wrapped up before being pushed forward by his pack. Donald Caniff at scrum half, captain at the side, got the ball from the ruck beside the touchline, passed the ball out to Tony Ward, who quickly chops into space. That's my New Zealand.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
I'm saying chip. And he chip kicks the ball into space between the aforementioned Stu Wilson, and Jimmy Bowen is left running into space against Stu Wilson to secure possession. The ball breaks, it bounces in his favour, gets there just ahead of Wilson, who gets nowhere near him. Bowen then sidesteps the fullback. Their centre comes back in just behind him, tries to tackle him, can only grab his jersey from behind. But as you well know, Kevin, that's not enough to stop a Munster man. Not on this day. Not like that.
Not today.
But it is enough to slow him down somewhat,
right.
At least for a defensive cover to arrive. But Bowen evades another tackle from behind. I think it's their scrum half at him then. At this stage, all the cover's there. He's around the 5 metre line, so he's forced to turn around. And there he sees flanker Christy Cantillon.
Come on, you bastard.
Gives it out to Christy, crosses the line as he goes through the gap, touches it down.
Oh.
Game fecking on.
Yes.
Game's on.
Come on.
Yeah. Tony Ward converts, kicking
Get in, Tony.
over the bar between the posts. Good man, Tony. Extending Ireland's lead. And then also having a great game, Tony. He ends up kicking a drop goal as well. It gives Ireland a 9-point lead. For anyone saying, Jason, those scores don't add up in terms of rugby, it was scored differently back then, and I don't have time to get into it.
There's more play-by-play action of a 30 or 40 or 50-year-old game.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Okay.
They've awakened the beast.
Mm-hmm.
They've got them annoyed. New Zealand spent a lot of the rest of that half with ball in hand, playing through their backs with last-minute challenges from Ireland. Yeah, so they held out till half-time, going in 9-0 up. But knowing the second half would be a completely different game, because much like today, these big sides have a tendency to be able to turn it on at the drop of a hat.
Yes, and much like today, it truly is a game of two halves.
So they got to half time, and under the stands, I don't know if they had changing rooms at the time, or if they did, I don't know why someone said under the stands.
I assume when they went into the dressing room, Tommy just gave another 10 minutes of silence.
Well, I think he actually did say this time something.
He said, "Don't let it go to your heads, lads."
He said, that was shite. I want more. No, I think he'd said something.
If ye lads fuck this up, I swear to Christ, I'll slash the tires of the bus myself.
You'll be walking home. We're already in Limerick. It's only I'll take the kneecaps off you is what I'll do, and then you can walk home. Donald Caniff, the captain, scrum half, he said pretty much the same thing, that it's 40 minutes until immortality for eternity. I'm not saying he said that verbatim. I'm saying I've said that.
Yeah. 40 minutes until you'd be talked about in a podcast in 2022.
Well, in fairness, they didn't celebrate. I don't want to give it away that they won. I think everyone already knows that they won.
Yeah, I think we've already given it away.
Yeah, probably a few times. But that's the lad said that such was the fixture list and everything else going on, they didn't really get a chance to celebrate it. And then they were obviously like a little bit that night, but some of the lads were playing a few days after for Ireland. They said it was the 20-year anniversary before they'd properly had one night to go and all collectively celebrate the win.
Which is how momentous it is that they're celebrating a victory, like having a 20-year anniversary of it.
So one of the big successes that New Zealand had in the first half was the lineouts, which were contested a lot more than they are these days. And New Zealand had to put in for them, and they were a lot better at them. So then even when Ireland did have them, it was tough for them. But in the second half, Ireland decided the great old tactic of don't compete for them, just let them win it, and then just hope they don't do much with it.
That's been my tactic all along in every sport endeavour. Let them have it. Let them fuck it up.
Let them tire themselves out.
Hope for the best.
But yeah, so Ireland's tactic was to not compete and just wait for them to win the ball and then all just sort of bum rush their scrum half, which actually worked fantastically well.
Okay.
Like a sieve, Donald Spring, the Irish number 8, described it. That was their defence. It was like we just basically had loads of success, which is also a tactic pretty much for the whole game to keep them on the back foot. So even when New Zealand were attacking, Ireland were quick off the line, and there had been concerns about the fact that they were going to get tired of all this defending, and then later on in the game, there's these professional lads. It started to take its toll then, and this is when they're going to pour it on. But no one accounted for the fact that every single time Ireland were tackling lads, New Zealand had to go backwards to start defending. So even though they had their own ball, they were defending it non-stop. Yeah, but between that and every single time Ireland got the ball, just booting it down the far end of the field, it was a lot for New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
And also, I imagine psychologically draining, as well as good for Munster, that they're like, it must be very psychologically frustrating to every single time you're getting close to a score, that the other team get it and boot it 60 yards back the other way.
And you just have to turn around and run back, yeah.
Yeah, and then you just have to go through big giant hits that maybe, who knows if they were illegal or not. Also, home crowd.
Yeah.
Home stadium.
Yeah. Referee, I'm assuming at the time it wasn't like they didn't have a neutral referee. It was probably a man born and bred from Limerick who would be inclined to look the other way.
Well, I don't think that's true.
But it's more fun if it is.
It is, but even if it was, he was probably bribed. Let's say that. Let's not ruin his reputation by saying he's from Limerick. Let's just say that he was a no good, dirty scoundrel.
Yeah.
Cheat.
Okay.
Now, all of that kicking down the other end of the field paid dividends eventually in the second half, as there was a moment when Tony Ward got the ball and booted it. Went down to about the 22.
Good man, Tony.
But it was Stu Wilson, the famous New Zealander, who was running back to get possession, and he makes an absolute hames of it. A balls of it, Kevin.
Oh.
Yeah, he misjudges the bounce.
Dinner.
It keeps going backwards. But it's one of those of like, nearly catches it, and then he nearly catches it again.
Yeah.
And then he nearly catches it again. And then all of a sudden, he's kicked it 20 metres closer towards his own try line, and then carries it over his try line, and then touches it down and gives Munster a 5-metre scrum.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that was really, it's pretty funny to watch. And even he's in the documentary and he's describing it, and he's like, well, I'm not going to do the accent, but he says, yeah, the thing is, a kick can be good or bad. It really depends on the people chasing it down. And these lads were right on top of me. And you can clearly see in the camera angle, they're nowhere near.
But psychologically, they were right there.
But so he says he looks over and sees them all barreling down, and he doesn't have time to react or do anything, so he just has to touch it down. And then all the Munster lads in the documentary say, yeah, I don't really know what the fuck he was thinking. It seemed like he really shouldn't have done that, because he just kind of kicked it 20 yards towards his own line and then caught it, dived on it without looking. Or if he did look really quickly, he had so much time and lads around him to just pass it off to.
Yeah.
It was a horrible mistake, which led to a Munster 5-metre scrum on the New Zealand line. So they're proper rattled at this stage. But, Jesus, don't New Zealand force the scrum back. It's not looking good for Munster. Until Colm Tucker, the number 7, the flanker, he picks it, passes it out, gets it to Tony Ward in enough space to just quickly to drop kick the ball over the bar in between the posts,
Another drop kick.
recreating his feet in the first half.
Ay, Jesus.
Yeah, great. They don't happen as much anymore.
No, they're extremely difficult, I guess.
They are, and there's more easier ways to score and get like penalties. Like as in penalties are given out a lot more now. Back then they wouldn't have been. So if you can't get through the line, I guess they're just like, right, we may try and score somehow.
Yeah.
So let's go for the drop goal. But now they're like, well, if we just pass it 2 more times, they'll probably foul us, and we can not have them running at us and having to drop the ball and kick it.
Yeah.
You can just have
Take your
90
time.
seconds to line yourself up and kick it
Yeah.
when the crowd aren't screaming as well.
Yeah, true.
But that gives Munster the 12-point lead and a historic win.
By Jesus.
The only time
That's great.
a New Zealand side had failed to score against an Irish province or national team.
The only thing is, I wish you'd told me this last week. I could have put some money on Munster. How much use fucking telling me now?
And the sports almanac.
Yeah, go back in time. Me and, what was his name? Buzz?
Biff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Biff's Sports Almanac. No, that must have been colossal. I wonder, did you see any numbers about like what percentage of people give a shit about rugby in Ireland at the time? I guess 12,000 people is a hefty enough turnout.
So it is, but then I'll have a quote for you here. In some of the things I saw, there was obviously newspapers making fun of it about the fact there was like 240,000 people in attendance as Munster beat New Zealand because everyone said they were there watching.
Yeah, it's like the old thing with everyone says that they saw U2 at the Dandelion Market, where they played to about 40 people.
Or a shite talk at the Samhain gig downstairs in Chennai.
600 strong. But that must have been a big,
well,
a big
John B.
occasion.
Keane had a quote about it. John B. Keane had said,
I was away trying to get a pint, and the fucking town was upside down. A man couldn't sit undisturbed for days.
well, he's a bit of a visionary. He had said that there were 12,000 at the match. But remember me when I tell you that every man, woman and child will have been at this encounter before the 20th century expires.
Yeah. Reminds me of, my grandfather, God rest him, used to always talk about how he was walking through Inniskeen for Patrick Kavanagh's funeral. And as the years went on, my dad would say that the story got more and more, like, he was more and more involved until the end of it. Which is just fucking, I was one of the pallbearers. I wouldn't say much, but I did dig his grave in the end. Whereas apparently my grandmother would maintain that at the time he just came home fuming because the whole town was blocked. He was trying to get a good honest day's work done, and he couldn't get the cattle from one end of Inniskeen to the other because the whole thing was thrown up for some idiot who'd only gone and died.
We're all going down for dances at Billy Brennan's bar and he wouldn't fucking show his face. But all of a sudden, when I'm trying to get home, he has to have fucking 10,000 people down the crowd in the village.
Causing ruckus. Yeah. But that's very good now. I wonder, I don't know what year it was. It's probably from the 70s. I remember watching an old Ireland-England game from the 70s, and I found it very funny how they're very lean, athletic-looking men. Not like modern rugby players. Like, I don't know at what point someone stumbled across the barrel. What if we put a barrel on legs into the mix and see how that works? Because at some point you described one of them as like a short, stocky man. I can guarantee that he like was no broader than me and you. He was just.
Oh no, yeah, for sure.
There's no one had invented Tyg furlong yet.
I think it was probably because Ireland went professional. I think in the in the early 90s we started having professional rugby players.
Oh really? Was that late?
Yeah, like late 80s, early 90s. Obviously they'd be getting like a heightened version of the GA where they'd be getting backhanders and they're seen as like kings amongst the town or else in the country and that. But they weren't like strength and conditioning, not like a million coaches to every single player like it is now. It was a lot. Even if you look at like Brian O'Driscoll from the time when he started playing for Ireland until the time he retired, you're like, Jesus Christ, look at the size of these men. Like even like the World Cups that happened in the 90s, like 90, what would have been? Like 96 or 9 or whatever it was. I think we lost to Argentina in 99 maybe. But yeah, they're not big. And even the big lads are just like, Jesus, that's a very big man.
Yeah.
He's just a farmer. He's just a giant man.
He's not like a man who's been fed haystacks since he was 6. Or were we talking about that recently? I love that video of someone spliced together the bull McCabe from the field and Tyke Furlong running. It's just that dance scene.
Yes, yeah.
Go on, Tyke. Go on, Tyke. Or faster, Tyke, faster. I love it. Brings me a lot of joy. But yeah, I was kind of making fun of the idea of a 20th anniversary to Munster beating New Zealand. But I remember, so Ireland finally beat New Zealand for the first time. Was that during the Chicago game?
2016 it was, over in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. We beat them over there. I think it was 40-29. I should have wrote this down before I came. And then they came over to Dublin about 2 weeks after and bet us there.
No, was it 2 weeks after?
Yeah, and no one ever talks about that. But they beat us there. Now, in fairness, in the last 5 times we've played them, we have beaten them. We've beaten them 3 times.
Okay. Oh, but I didn't remember it being 2 weeks afterwards, but I remember going to see the next match in the Sugar Club, and they played the Chicago game in full before the match, and everyone was going wild. Maybe if it was 2 weeks, that's even funnier, because we all knew how it ended. And everyone was like, "Jeez, it's a nail-biting finish. Oh, I can't believe he's done it again. He's done the same thing I saw him do 2 weeks ago." But everyone was jumping up and down and hugging, and everyone was piss drunk before the real game even started. And then we lost.
Then we lost. And then this match ends with the whistle going off, the crowd race onto the pitch like they do in football or like in old FA Cup finals and such. They absolutely, or the GAA even, I should say. But it's not a common thing in rugby, see. Tony Ward, the fly half, he's carried away. You're seeing grown men cry. The players go back into the tunnels and then get cheered back out onto the pitch.
Yes.
It's a big day. And then Donald Caniff, the scrum half, the captain, his dad had been listening on the radio, the old wireless. And such was his excitement that he died.
I knew you were going to say that. But he died at least a happy man.
I don't know if he made it to the end of the game.
Oh, I should just lie. Say that he did.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I think if that had have been the case, it would have definitely been in the narrative of the story.
But you can change the narrative. Just make it up.
I do that with so many things. I don't know why I'm so unwilling to do it here.
No, he died halfway through the game.
It was that kickoff.
Before he died before the game even started.
But so all the lads said that this put a bit of a dampener on the whole night.
Yeah, that must be weird.
They'd went back to the whole. Yeah, because he had to go straight to Cork after that and drive down there. Like the highest elation of like the biggest sporting achievement in your life, and maybe like the biggest achievement to captain your, for a lot of lads in Munster is bigger than Ireland. If you can play for them, like that's you want to win stuff with them.
We've talked about it before, but your regional team is better than your national team.
Yeah. So seemingly that, I was going to say seemingly, of course that put a real dampener on the entire night. It took the wind out of the sails until he left, and then it was like the real comptroller where it was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Donald, you may leave now." And then as soon as he's gone, the car drives off. Like, fucking New Zealand lads, we just bet New Zealand. That'd be a really funny sketch. Joe, a really funny scene just to see lads going up like sympathising with him at the wake, but being like, "Sorry for your loss, but Jesus, fair play to you, fucking man." But sorry, he was a great man. He's a great man. But fuck, you fairly stuck it to them, lad. Good, fair play to you. He would have been proud. I guarantee every single handshake would have been. What did he feed you as a child? Yeah. Huh? Jesus, fair fucks to you. Sorry once again. And then to make things worse, then I don't know if the New Zealand lads knew this, and if they did, poor enough for they came into the hotel basically dancing because they were like, "Do you know what? It's Ireland. Do you know what they'd enjoy? To show that we're good spirits, we'll take the loss on the chin." They came into the hotel reception afterwards singing. Yeah. Like, hi ho, it's off for pints we go. That maybe they didn't know. Maybe they were just having a sing along. Like some of the lads would have been from opposite parts of Munster. Like, like Limerick, but like also there's different parts of Munster and that. And like that is really sad, and he's captain and everything, and that's really shite. But like, I'm going to have a pint and celebrate and then lord it over these New Zealand internationals. Yeah. But no, in fairness, they gave it up to them, and they'd said that they used the defeat as inspiration to go on and unbeaten on the rest of the tour. They only lost the one game all tour. Didn't concede a try for the next 10 matches. They beat Ireland 4 days afterwards, with a lot of the Munster lads going up to play in the game. Oh, here's something that that a lot of the people in the press or also around Ireland didn't like. Jack Gleeson, the coach in New Zealand, he said that if they had known it was going to be a game of kamikaze tackling, they would have played it a little bit differently.
Ooh.
And there was an awful lot of a lot of lads took that the wrong way for some reason.
I get kamikaze more raw then than it is now, and I don't know, the most unpopular Jack Gleeson since King Joffrey.
That's what I thought. As soon as I typed his name in, I had to go back and then go, okay, rugby. Yeah, because I typed in Jack Gleeson bastard after I saw that, and it wasn't the first one that popped up.
No.
Yeah, they'd beaten Ireland a few days afterwards, 10-6. With Ireland only conceding a try late on, it had been 6-6. They reckon if Munster hadn't have beaten New Zealand, Ireland would have got the win that weekend.
Yeah,
that they were
enough.
Like, their pride was hurt. They were meant to be like the serious team, and then this is also a test game, so they went out, and they also stopped with the expansive style of play and just kind of ball under the shirt, run it down their throat, kick it into touch when it, like into the corners when you need it. They also implemented that style for the rest of their games and won all of them.
Fair.
So it was that too. But do you want a quick rundown of the men?
Yeah. Give me the
Jerry Ginger McLaughlin.
Ginger
he took
McLaughlin.
home the match ball.
Okay.
I assume for the colour of his hair.
Maybe.
I can't imagine anything.
He was quick and nimble on the pitch.
Oh, fun fact about him. He took home the match ball. Now, not for being man of the match. He said that the first of the 3 match balls used that day had been lost because it was kicked out of the stadium into his cousin's garden just behind Thomond Park.
That's great. And he just kept it then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he had to give his cousin £100 for it.
Nice. Wouldn't even give it to him, the stingy bastard.
Now, that's not the only souvenir that Ginger took from the match. Herpes gladatorum, or scrumpox, or herpes rugbiorum.
Who is coming up with these names?
Well, it's also known as matpox, or wrestler's herpes.
Right. So herpes is definitely cropping up quite a bit in this.
Yeah, this is a type of herpes.
Okay.
But it's incredibly infectious, and it can be passed just by skin to skin.
Oh, sorry. I thought the guy's name was Herpes. I thought you were talking about the next player, Ginger McLaughlin.
Well, and you think
Matt Herpes?
I said as a souvenir. I said the other souvenir he took home from the game, another living being. Such was his performance that they said, you know what, you can have a slave.
Well, listen, it's rugby in the 70s.
But well, it's not South Africa they're playing.
Yeah.
But they said he got it from Gary Knight, whose other sport of choice, wrestling.
Okay.
So it's either like that type of herpes is either it has names for rugby and wrestling, and he does both. He won a bronze for New Zealand at the 1974 Commonwealth Games.
Well, that also seems like a very, like they were good friends who lived in an apartment to save on heat and died together in the same. They were 2 men who went out in the town and had a rollicking nice time, and one contracted herpes from the other, purely through their love of wrestling. Skin to skin contact on the pitch.
They sat down in the same toilet seat.
Of course.
Jerry McLaughlin, Ginger, he went on to be the mayor of Limerick in 2012, having served years on the city council.
Oh.
Yeah. So there was also Pat Whelan, future manager of Ireland, Les White, Moss Keane, Brendan Foley. He was the lock who knocked the ball down from the line out in position 1 to start off the move for Munster's try. There was Christy Cantillon, the try scorer. There was a joke that went around at the time. They said Magnus Magnusson has from Mastermind.
Oh yeah.
Magnus Magnusson has Jimmy Bowen in the chair and asks him, "What did you do with the All Blacks lying at your mercy?" "Pass," says Jimmy. Correct. Jimmy didn't always like that one.
Yeah, that's
but I can imagine that, just slapping his knee, everyone having a great time.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, Jimmy tried to fight a lot of lads when they'd said that.
It's such a like highbrow joke that definitely ended in a bar fight.
Colin Tucker, I think he was the man who picked it from the scrum and gave it to Tony Ward for the drop goal in the second half. There was Donald Spring at number 8. There was Captain Donald Caniff. He'd also played in the 3-3 draw in 1973.
Yes.
And reading about him, I'd found out the term lickadoo.
A lickadoo. Is that another way to get herpes?
And that's how he contracted it in the first place.
Lickadood.
But seemingly it's a term for lads who used to play rugby but no longer do, but are just spend all their day and time talking and thinking about it.
I see. Right, yeah.
Like every old man around the country, basically. And then there's Tony Ward at number 10 as the out half. We've already on about him. He was the European Player of the Year in 78, and he was on the Lions tour in 1980. There was Jim Bowen, your man who caught the ball and ran past all the lads, broke the tackles and assisted the try. It was Greg Barrett. There was Seamus Dennison, your man with the big tackle in the first half. There was Moss Finn, and there was Larry Maloney.
Moss Keane and Moss Finn.
Yes, 2 Mosses.
Yeah. That's a real that's a real Cork name. It's a real, I don't know, you don't really hear it in the rest of the country. Mossy.
And and it's one of those nicknames that's longer when you just add the Y.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Because everything else would be,
Yeah.
And then Larry Maloney. There's the 15 Munster lads. Oh, I do remember earlier on that when you had said about your dad or your granddad and Paddy Kavanagh that none of the subs got on the field. So like as the years went by, they would have been that close to this immortality, but never got to play. So you can imagine those lads were telling tall tales over the years. One of them, as such, was caught saying, I forget his name now, but he had said, "Geez, even 10 minutes that day would have done me." And one of the other players turned around to him and said, "It would have done New Zealand as well." The teams have played since. New Zealand wanted the win back badly and as quickly as they possibly could. So 11 years later, they came back up, having
hot
won
on
the
the
World
heels.
Cup,
Lads were just about finished celebrating in Thomond. It was winding down.
Well, they'd said that the fact that everywhere when New Zealand came over, obviously it was still known in the world at the time about the Munster game, so it was enough fuel for the fire anyway. But then the fact that when they all landed in Munster or down in Limerick, that there wasn't a man, woman or child who didn't remind them at every inch of a step they took around the city that, we beat ye there 11 years ago on the same ground.
As if they'd forgotten. Now, I know you won't remember this being professional rugby players, but little known fact, last time you were here, we beat you.
Well, and these lads had just won the first World Cup in 1987.
So in a way, Munster had won the World Cup.
Yeah, no.
In the minds of the people of Limerick, Cork, Kerry.
9 years after, and I almost guarantee you that not one of the same players was on either side.
Oh, well.
But this game then would have been 11 after. So it didn't go Munster's way. 31-9 in front of 18,000 people. But yeah, they lost 31-9. It wasn't great. But then as a commemorative, I don't know if you remember this now, as a commemoration of the famous 1978 game, 30 years on in 2008, on November 18th, which worked out perfectly because that's when Munster were opening up the new Thomond Park Stadium.
Oh.
Four of that original New Zealand team were in attendance for the match, not playing, obviously, just up there in the crowd watching, representatives and such. New Zealand... and Munster themselves had 4 New Zealand players in their squad. Rua Tupoki, Doug Howlett, Lefemi Maffey, and Jeremy Manning. I wanted to note that because the haka from the New Zealand lads was way better this time around.
Yeah.
Just because...
Bit more authentic.
Yeah, there was a lot of a little bit more authentic. And B, Munster did their own haka in response to the All Blacks.
Oh, okay.
Now... I say Munster did this. The 4 New Zealand lads they had in the squad stood out in front and did it in a line, and all of the Munster lads went shoulder to shoulder in the background and kind of swayed.
Okay, yeah, that's probably for the best.
It would have been a cool commemoration of the other game to see a bunch of white lads in the back not being able to do it.
That's how they really could have brought it back.
And now for this game, however, Munster were without 10 Irish internationals because they were playing New Zealand a few days after. Or the week after, or whatever it was. So New Zealand
So they didn't make the same mistake of blowing their load on the Munster match.
Oh no, yeah. By this stage, Ireland needed all the lads they could get.
Yeah.
And New Zealand, in fairness to them, were like, well, we're also really good now at this stage as well, and probably like 3 or 4 different squads that could beat them. So they were fielding a fairly understrength side as well, which helped the atmosphere, made it a very competitive game. Obviously, the crowd there, the fact the stadium's open, the commemoration of everything. Munster, they knew what the occasion meant to the fans. Now, also so did the New Zealand players. Still, they'd heard about all the history and such.
Yep.
They were made attend a play called Alone It Stands by Limerick playwright John Breen.
They wrote a play about and they made the New Zealand team attend it.
Yeah.
I'd imagine with a lot of, I don't know why I think it'd be funny just for a lot of like racially inappropriate people to be playing the New Zealand. Well, they probably have like me and you up there. Oh, hey, I tried to chip the ball. Oh, I've gone and niffed it.
Way better than that.
Oh yeah.
Because I was going to say, how do you, how could you get 30 men on a stage? Each side.
Is it children?
They didn't have to. No, they didn't bother with that. They had 6 actors playing 62 roles between them.
Jesus.
They had both sets of players, the managers, the ref, the crowd, some journalists, some children building bonfires, the Bunratty singers, the match day ball itself, a pregnant lady,
Jesus
and
Christ.
a dog.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't know why they had to have a dog. I don't know if there was even a dog invader on the pitch at the time, but in fairness, that is great when it happens in rugby or in any sport.
Yeah. But then to recreate it in a play. This was in 2008.
In 2008, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Now, I think the film, they said that the play must have been done years before. It had a lot of success. It had sellout runs in Ireland and had played in the Sydney Opera House and over in Auckland in New Zealand as well. So
where it did
well
less
received.
well.
I think it was like one of those, it's from all 6 lads, but all 6 lads would be up there, or like they'd take turns, but they're going from different vantage points of the day, or like, just...
Yeah.
It's probably like 15 different stories all in the one, or about like how the game went on or stuff. I don't really know. We should go and try and find it. Find it. It's probably relatively good.
Sure.
Yeah. But the All Blacks were brought to watch this, to teach them the history of the match, but also to show them the importance of the game to Munster and its supporters, and to let them know how match shit insane the people of Limerick are. Now Munster were up 10-6 at halftime, with a try coming from Hermitage Green frontman Barry Murphy.
Oh, okay. I thought his name was Hermitage Green for a second, but Barry Murphy's pretty good.
They used to be the house band for the second captains when they had their RG show.
Ah.
He wrote a song actually, Alone You Stand. That was remember it was a play as well. But for the deceased Anthony Foley, the Munster manager and former great player who died there a few years ago. He released that there last year. But yeah, they were 10-6 up at halftime, and after 76 minutes, they were 16-13 up with only 4 minutes left to play before Joe Rocco Coco, which is a fantastic name.
A great name. He
scored a try to ensure an 18-16 win for New Zealand because they missed a conversion, but they came very close to recreating the feat. But yeah, that was heartbreaking. But thankfully, they got their own back then in a certain sense in 2016. When the New Zealand Maori All Blacks came up and Munster beat them 27-14, which I thought, Jesus, holy Christ, that must be huge. I didn't realise it's a bit less impressive because to play for the Maori team, you had to be from Maori descent, obviously.
Okay.
I'm going to hopefully pronounce this correctly, of Waka Papa descent.
Right.
Which was not a rule they'd really enforced. Like up until a couple of years before that, and it was basically, if you had a New Zealand accent, or if your ancestry came from, say, Africa or Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, or any of that, you're allowed to. Basically, they used to say if you weren't white, you were allowed to play for the Maori All Blacks.
Right.
I think there's only one player from their last squad that had ever played for the All Blacks proper. But still, Munster bet them. Win's a win.
We still won. We took it to them.
Mm-hmm. But that's the history of Munster playing the All Blacks, and specifically the victory, the famous victory in 1978.
Very good. Well done. Well researched. I guess this is all ahead of the Six Nations. When people are looking for like, you know, the hottest tips on the latest rugby games, they'll stumble upon this and listen to a recap of a game from 1978, and they'll bloody love it.
About two teams that aren't competing
No.
in the Six Nations.
No, one of which is extremely irrelevant. But no, that's good. I enjoyed it anyway.
But yeah, that's all from us.
Good luck.
Right, Shafter.